Cognitive Psychology, Insights for Business-to-Business Sales and Marketing. This podcast runs for about 12 minutes, and one of my friends, who is a very experienced marketing guy, said, "Wow, that's a long time for people to listen. You'll probably lose a lot after the first minute." And my reflection is that's okay if people find that this is not for them. I should add that I'm not about to offer the cheesy 3 quick wins or 5 steps to optimization, offers that to me raise immediate suspicion. They can feel like the modern equivalent of snake oil, often disrespectful of your intelligence and frankly the reality that some things are just not easy and simple. Glory be to that. Searching, learning and solving is a joy to embrace. What I hope to do is expose to you a glimpse of a rich and often unexploited vein of opportunity as I see it, in the application of learnings from cognitive psychology studies to specific sales and marketing challenges. For some of you, this will be an intervention that may spur a fresh approach that could save you a lot more than 12 minutes. Cognitive Psychology, Insights for Business-to-Business Sales and Marketing. Make it harder for sales to accept a marketing lead and see an improvement in results. Really? I'm suggesting that what might initially seem counterintuitive could be incredibly helpful. Before I suffer immediate rejection based on my being gratuitously contrary, consider this. Have logical approaches yet delivered an effective solution to the challenge of getting sales to enthusiastically embrace leads passed to them by marketing? And secondly, that an understanding of the decisions that people make when faced with contextual prompts and choices can help us nudge their behavior towards the desired outcome. Behaviors that are hard to explain and even more challenging to predict include the observation that people buy much more of a certain well-known triangular chocolate bar when they pass through airports than when they pass through supermarkets, that they'll make a larger charity contribution if they're invited to think that they are adopting their very own snow leopard, or commit to a larger pension deduction when with no change in the amount deducted, it's determined by future salary increases as opposed to current earnings. Most of us have an instinctive understanding of these behaviors, but they're not predictable using a model of economics or rational logic. The choices made are not based on any economic advantage. While we might tell people what we want them to do, there are deeply rooted facets in the human psyche that will determine how they actually behave. And we can use that understanding to advantage by nudging people to respond in a preferred way. This may have informed the change from the unenforceable signage, "Don't feed the animals," to "Please feed the animals with the right food that you can buy from us at £4 a packet. Happy animals, happy visitors, reduced feed costs." Nudging behavior isn't brand new thinking. Psychology, behavioral economics, and decision theory have been successfully applied to influence people's behavior in areas of public policy, design, advertising, and consumer marketing for decades. It is, after all, just about the way people with their unique bias respond to context. For a good read on this subject, try a book by Rory Sutherland, Alchemy, The Surprising Power of Ideas That Don't Make Sense. Also available on Audible and read by the author. It's both entertaining and compelling. My contention is that behavioral science is just as relevant in corporate B2B, where understanding and its application is far less mature. We might agree logic and rationality only go some of the way in predicting human behavior, and yet in corporate life we often tend to limit process design to a perspective that's based solely on the expectation of a rational response. If we were to add an understanding of how people actually behave, rather than how we think they should behave, wouldn't that be helpful? Dare I say, wouldn't it be logical? In our example, as a marketer, we might want to nudge salespeople to energetically adopt and pursue leads passed to them by marketing. But how might we do that? Firstly, some context. Marketing often carries a demand generation objective and a target to pass a number of suitably qualified leads to sales colleagues who hopefully shepherd them to a revenue win. but expect poor outcomes if marketing is measured just on the number as opposed to the quality or expected value of those leads. A target limited to a number will incentivize the passing of quantity versus quality, which typically does not have a happy ending. But even when metrics appear to be well conceived, marketing is often frustrated by an apparent lack of interest from their sales colleagues in their significant efforts to generate those leads and inquiries. Marketing often reports that leads passed to sales are simply ignored. Leads are initially accepted by sales and then ignored. They're rejected as no good, or perhaps most annoyingly, they're accepted and then later replaced with a duplicate that has no attribution of the marketing activity. The relationship between marketing and sales becomes strained and trust is tested. When I wrestled these challenges while working in marketing at some large global tech organizations, I espoused the view that the way to ensure marketing leads were effectively passed was to make the conversion process as easy as possible. I saw the effort and confusion associated with clicks and field completion in systems as a significant reason that salespeople didn't readily accept and take action on leads passed. My rationale was because that's what salespeople told me. It's also probably what they believed was driving their action or lack of it. So, we simplified the handover process, which had a modest effect, but it really was not a game changer. A consequence was that it changed the problem to one where the leads made it through a more seamless transition, but stalled later. The blockage in the U-bend became a blockage further down the pipe. So why am I now suggesting the opposite approach, to make it harder? In truth, it's partly because I've had more bandwidth to think than ever I had when acting in an operational role. Perhaps from an outside perspective, I can be more objective and unconstrained in offering a controversial opinion. But it's actually more fundamentally because I now realize that the issue should be reframed. The lead handover process was not the problem that needed solving. The problem was the perceived value of the gift by the receiver. As we might now agree, behavior can at times appear irrational through a lens of corporate process or economic theory, because people respond in ways and for reasons that extend well beyond the considerations that may have gone into the design of a process. Factors influencing actual behavior will include past experience, perceptions born out of bias, and immediate context such as, what else is competing for my time? I've already done my target, time to relax now and push these to the next quarter. What does my comp plan tell me to do? Do I like the marketing guy that passed me the lead? The last lead from marketing was rubbish. Why would this one be any different? Do my boss's words and actions give me a steer as to how to behave? Will I suffer meaningful penalty if I go off process? A finding from research studies that's worth noting is that people attribute a higher value to things that require effort to obtain. Makes sense, you might react, but does it make sense? An economist would argue that £100 gift in your jacket pocket is worth exactly the same as the £100 in your wallet that you earned from a hard morning's work. And logically, the economist is right. But you might be more cautious in spending the earnings than in spending the gift. A study known as the IKEA effect found that effort required in the self-assembly of furniture resulted in a higher monetary valuation by the owner than for that of an equivalent pre-built alternative. It follows that if marketing passes a lead in an automated fashion and the salesperson assumes ownership with minimal personal investment of effort, it will be perceived by the salesperson as having a lower value than one enriched by his or her own efforts. Recommendation: ensure that there are meaningful steps requiring personal investment from the salesperson before he or she has authority to run with a lead. Don't make it easy, make it harder. A further research observation is that of loss aversion theory propounded by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. It observes that while people don't like to lose, most dislike losing more than they like to win. For example, when facing a 10% price increase by a supplier, the pain of a potential loss will spur a customer into surveying the market for alternatives, where a potential economic gain from finding a supplier who is 10% cheaper didn't prompt that response. Similarly, a salesperson will likely feel more aggrieved if an opportunity from their pipeline were passed by management to another colleague than they feel satisfaction if an opportunity with the same expected value replaced it. Sales leaders are often frustrated by execs who fail to aggressively pursue new opportunities while displaying the sunk cost effect in a dogged pursuit of deals with a lower expected value justified on effort they've already expended. That instinct can be used to advantage where the initial investment of effort from a seller in a lead handover crystallizes that personal cost and motivates further action, while a lead pass with no investment will likely remain untouched. The combined effect of lead assignment that requires a personal investment, together with an instinctive aversion to loss, results in an increased commitment from sales to pursue a lead, which is what we want to see. What's in a name? Tribal instincts. The convention of calling a lead a marketing lead is counterproductive. Sales and marketing functions both play critical roles in winning business, but their respective impact cannot be predetermined and is often the result of the buyer's behavioral preferences. Some buyers being wooed by marketing messages and moving to a quick sale, others making the salesperson work hard to win the deal. With internal competition for resources and a culture of brinkmanship, this can make kudos for effective demand generation a contentious area, often too uncomfortable for frank and open discussion. Sales and marketing could agree that demand generation is a team sport and that the only real competition is a market competitor that might beat you to the deal, but such agreement is rare. Even those that might argue that this sort of internal competition can drive good outcomes would struggle to suggest that it's efficient. Designation as marketing generated, coupled with a low level of personal investment from sellers, is a double whammy inhibitor to the perceived value of a lead by the salesperson. Recommendation: be cautious in using the designation, in other words, don't do it, of leads as marketing generated versus sales generated. It can result in tribal behavior and organizational dissonance. Lead scoring and reputational damage. To imbue a sense of urgency in the follow-up of leads, some organizations have scoring models where a higher score is associated with a greater level of digital interaction by a prospect or their fit to a target market. The intent being that those with a high score receive more urgent attention. The unintended consequence can be that those with lower scores are completely ignored, an entirely logical behavior by the salesperson if she interprets the score as an effective predictor of winning a deal. The problem, of course, is that a score is often not a good predictor of outcome or expected value, but only one of maturity of a lead at a point in time. To protect marketing's reputation, high-score leads should be meaningfully differentiated from low-score leads, especially in the normal situation where the former is very significantly outnumbered by the latter. Salespeople will perceive all leads based on their most recent experience, likely a low-score lead. Remember that reputation takes an age to build and moments to lose.